And we're back. We're talking to the fantastic team from the Comic Republic. My name is Nuru. I'm with the Naija Nerds with Dapo and Olawale. We're speaking to Jide and Wale from the Comic Republic. And at this point, we're going to be talking a little bit about the business of what they do. We've already started and stated at the beginning that it's one of the big challenges. This industry is not the most forgiving in any part of the world. Whether it's in a place like the United States, where there's actually a solid comic book industry versus other parts of the world, like in Nigeria, where, like you mentioned at one point, I think we've heard you say that some of us have even had parents who warned us against going in that direction. So my question to you guys is, when did you decide or settle on the business model that would work for you? Because you guys have a rather unique model in the industry. There's those who run their businesses through Kickstarter campaigns to try and generate funds. There's those who try to literally sell each individual book and sometimes end up operating at a loss from the start. So I'm curious to know, at what point did you come upon the idea that a free model, or is it freemium now? It's a free model, advertising driven model works for you, and is that even truly what it is?
Okay, so again, I think, to be honest with you, it's one of those things that I look back and I can't figure out what inspired the idea. It's one of those things that I would say that just hit me as it was the right way to go. And here's why. I looked at my own experience with reading comics. And I found out that, look, apart from the comics my mom bought for me, which was years ago, most of the other comics that I've read were either comics that were passed on to me by friends, either physically, or comics that were downloaded and still passed on to me by friends. And this was also not as a lack of not wanting to actually buy the comic books. It was that there were really nowhere to buy the comic books. Nigerians by now would have forgotten how hard it was to buy anything outside Nigeria just about 5 years ago. PayPal did not work. Any of those foreign companies that would sell anything would not sell anything to you as long as you had the word Nigeria in front of it. It's just recently that you could easily just buy things across. Normally, you'd have to wait for somebody to buy it from abroad and bring it and stuff like that. I also remember then, because I was still in Nigeria, Wale would be coming back, and his favorite gift for me would be a comic book or two, and I'll be ecstatic, because he left for London before I did. So, looking at all those issues, the first thing for me was I knew that, okay, I wanted to make comic books. I wanted to, make comic books for Nigerians, but I was in an environment where Nigerians did not even really care about comic books in the first place. And somehow, I thought, okay, like any business, you needed to invest in infrastructure, right? And so for me, investing in infrastructure for me was to generate the interest of Nigerians in Nigeria to want to read comic books in the first place, right? And so for me, that was the infrastructure. I felt, look, if you can get people to be interested in comic books, then you can sell anything through comic books. And so for me, I knew it was an investment. And so I came into the business telling my team that, look, for the next 5 years, we're not going to make money, right? And funny enough, they were crazy enough to listen to me. Right? And that was it. I literally came in to say, guys, we're going to give out these comics free, and the aim is to build an interest in comics, nothing more. That's number one. Number two was because we always had this African best foot forward. I was like, okay, we're also going to make it quality. We're going to start with what we have. I remember from the beginning telling them we can't draw on normal A4 paper. We have to use A3 because that's the standard that is being used abroad. We need to be able to put details into the paper and stuff like that. So that meant we needed to buy, A3 scanners, blah, 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 and going on like that. And then I got a couple of people together and I said, okay, for this first set of comic books, we will pay for you to make the comics. Now, again, it was an investment at that point in time. And I need to bring to the fact that there is no business that is existing in Nigeria, heck, anywhere else in the world, that somebody did not first invest in first to build the infrastructure. And I knew that already. And so for me, I was going to do my day job, which was my fashion business during the day. and I'll come back in the evening, I'll take off my clothes, and I will sit down with the team, who were a couple of young boys with me, and then we start drawing, and I will pay them from the money that I was making from my other business. And so that's how we started with funding Comic Republic in the first place, right? But also, I also knew that at the same time, we needed a marketing arm, because this was supposed to be a free product. I was very conscious of that, but yet we needed to offer a way to sell. And like any other magazine, we were offering advertising space. And so the first thing that I did, and this was a very crazy story, was I was like, okay, the first comic book of Guardian Prime was going to come out in Silverbed flyers. I don't know if you guys remember Silverbed. It was the only cinema in Nigeria at that point in time. They had these flyers that came out every Friday when they were going to bring movies, and people would pick them up and take them, all of that. And I took 200,000 naira then, and then I put it into advertising in all the Silverbed flyers the day Superman Man of Steel was coming out, right? And I did that twice. And the third time we were going to do that, we were approached by First Bank, who were ready to give us 800,000 to put a one-page ad in our Silverbed comics. And that 800,000 had covered for the past 200,000, because we had spent 400,000 in the past, which I got from the business I was running then. And that immediately just bet the business model where, okay, we're going to constantly give this thing out free to generate eyeballs. And that's really our business model. What we're doing is that we're generating traffic, and then we're selling that traffic to prospective people who wanted to move their brand loyalty from one product to the other. Now, that business model has evolved over the years simply because we stuck with it, and it was a lot of growing pains, like I said, for 3 years of constantly putting the money in. But the thing was that was the plan from the beginning. And, let me put it this way. If you were going to start a farm, it won't seem crazy that you first have to look for investment, because, people will tell you, normal, it's a farm, you have to buy land, you have to buy produce. If you were going to go into any other business, it won't be crazy that you have to look for investment. Why would it be crazy that you first have to invest in comics? You need to get some kind of financing into it first to put all the things in place, which is to actually produce the product, and then start to look for financing then. Fortunately for us, because we were turning out a lot of these good works, a lot of people from outside the country, which is still our major source of income today, started commissioning us to create comics for them. So even though we release comics every 2 weeks, I can tell you that we are working for other companies. We're presently, as we speak, we're working for Al Jazeera. Today, we have a project for Al Jazeera, we have a project for DW, we have a project for the guys who are creating the cryptocurrency. And I could go on and on. We're doing something presently for Gameloft, but all these guys are paying for us to create the same thing that we do, that we're pushing out for them. And the only reason why they're asking us to do that is because by mere fact that we're releasing comics every 2 weeks, we have done what they call proof of concept, that we can actually do this, and it's now translating to that. So we actually have a solid team of close to 100 people, but half of them are actually doing these other projects for these other people, and then the other half are doing our core. And we've gradually now migrated to things like licensing. We actually license our characters, and we've actually now even moved to the point where we're now licensing our comics for people to use on their own platforms. And most of these platforms are in places that you don't even know about, Latin America and places like that. We're actually getting license for us people to put our comics on our platform in those sectors. Yes. Wow. All of this, I will tell you, the business plan was invest in creating a product and then drive, sell eyeballs to prospective buyers, which if you really look at it is what Facebook is doing, is what YouTube is doing, is what Instagram is doing. They're giving you products free. You don't pay to use Instagram, you don't pay to use Facebook, but there are guys who are being paid salaries, thousands of workers around the world, to make sure that Instagram is what it is. And what do they sell? They sell advert slots. They sell the fact that they have 2 million viewers on their platform. That's simply our business model.
I'll quickly jump in with the advertisement. Reading the comic, I noticed they are kind of like static PDFs in a sense. So they look like there's some adverts there that are not changing. So do you have a way to update the ads, or did the people who paid for those ads hit the jackpot whereby the ads are going to be there in the comic in perpetuity?
So you've just revealed one of our business plans up front. It's not fair. It's not business, right? But anyway, there's a term we call it, right, which I'm not going to, so that people would not use it against, our prospective customers. But one of the benefits of putting your ads in a comic book is the fact that it's there forever. Right? People are going to come up and pick up this thing. It's like you pay for one ad and then you have it. Think about it. You put an ad on a TV screen, or you put it on a show, and then it's literally gone once that show is off air. But every single time somebody picks up the comic book to read, either on their digital platform or physically, it's there. You can't do away with it. You pick the book.
It's part of the comic officially.
Always there. And so, yes,
Nice.
it is one of our selling points.
Nice. Then the other question I wanted to quickly ask was, I noticed that I'm pointing at my screen, sorry. I noticed that artists change from comic to comic. What is your ideal scenario? Is it, okay, you, this artist, focus on this character, or you, this artist, focus on this week? Like, what's your ideal scenario in terms of number of artists and number of issues, and how often you change artists?
We're still evolving in that sense. And let me tell you why I say we're still evolving. The truth is, we're still trying very, very much to make sure that we stick with our people back at home, all right? But the truth is, and I think I haven't really worked with artists from the US, but not a lot of our creative professionals here are very mature. So what you find out that we have a huge pool of talents that we work with, but a lot of them disappoint from time to time. But because we have so many, which we do consciously, where we have so many people that we pay and we keep busy at the same time, when one person disappoints, we just quickly replace with another. So our ideal scenario would be to have one artist work on one title, maybe on the next 12 issues. By the point where we're releasing comics every 2 weeks, we can't afford to wait for that one artist to be ready to continue with the job. So at the point where the artist, for whatever reason, cannot continue with the job, we don't even think twice, we quickly replace, right? This is to ensure that we have some form of consistency, of which people are still complaining that we're not consistent enough, even though we're the only ones releasing comics every 2 weeks. I don't understand it, but
do you ever ask two artists to work at the same time, like a backup thing, or you're not there yet in terms of finances?
No, well, we actually asked. To be honest, we have a number of projects, right, where we've had about 2 or 3 where we've had teams of 4, and we've had 10 separate teams working simultaneously, right?
Wow.
To be honest with you, that's how we can even bring you Vanguards presently. They were all done simultaneously. Issue 1 to 6 was done simultaneously.
Wow.
Different teams. We have presently a very efficient but complicated way of communicating and managing our team. But because we've been doing it for so long, it's so entrenched, it's almost automatic now. And so we have multiple teams working. I can confidently tell you, and this will sound weird, we have comics ready up until the middle of next year. This is because we have simultaneous teams working. We have dates. We can tell you dates when these books are going to be coming out. And if you notice our method, we do it in seasons where we give specific dates and we don't miss it. This is because we have simultaneous teams working. It's expensive to do that at once, but it pays off because you always deliver on results.
Am I the only one that's thinking DC could learn from you guys when it comes to some of their recent releases that were stalled for so long that I gave up on the bloody... Anyway, sorry. Anyway, let's just move on. That's an amazing method. I mean, we've all heard about the Marvel method. So it looks like you guys might be pioneering something here, the Comic Republic method. You alluded to it earlier, but I am curious about it because it's just the first time I'd ever heard of such a thing. The fact that a comic book company was working on a crypto comic book or cryptocurrency comic book. What can you tell us about that? That was a very interesting thing to even hear about to begin with.
So it was pretty interesting when it was a company called MetaMe, when they came to us and they said, okay, they wanted to, find a way to educate people on cryptocurrency. Basically, this guy wanted to talk about, internet safety and eventually, end up with how, people should start to save in cryptocurrency and stuff like that. But the main focus really was going to be internet safety, which for us felt like a very, very important issue to be tackled with. What is your internet double? What does it look like? How does it operate? How is it being saved? Because the truth is, if we all look at it, we all have an internet double. You have a digital presence online. By the time you put things like your account status, your Facebook status, your various status, you start to find out that you actually have an active personality that goes shopping, that chats, that communicates with people. Online, there's a version of you online. That was what we, it was all those ideas put together. And the good thing was that the guy who brought the idea was really open and he allowed us to just do his thing. He basically came up with this idea, and as usual, I fall back to the head of my writing team, Wale. And I say, Wale, we have this idea. I completely love it. Again, Wale is always trying to make sure we don't run into trouble, and he's always like, look, you want to start talking about internet safety. All these big boys on the internet, they don't like this kind of thing and stuff like that. And I was like, Wale, I think it's something that we should work on. And of course, the moment I convince him, he jumps on it immediately. And he basically crafted this whole amazing world. And we came out with this thing. And let me give you a hint of how far it goes. We're thinking about doing digital collectibles, and it's the first time that's ever going to be done. This is going to become a game where you can actually own your own assets. It doesn't belong to a company. So for example, a character will have various assets that has to do with the character. For example, his helmet, his gauntlet, his boots, whatever. It's going to come out in limited numbers. And then you as a player, once you buy it, if we only have 10, as a player, you keep only those 10 will go out. And once you have only those 10 copies of it, you can now sell it at whatever price you want. And so we're not going to make any more versions of that particular item anymore. And so they become digital collectible that you can either exchange on the platform or you could actually physically sell. I could come and meet you and say, look, you have those boots. Should I give you cash for it? And you say, okay, you transfer the rights of it to me and the game. You could also pay for it with cryptocurrency, so that's the plan for Naija going forward. We started a start engine on it and presently raised over $200,000 on start engine. And so it's been a very successful project going forward. Thanks to Wale, who wrote an amazing story of the whole thing.
I can tell you for a fact that I took some time to try and look, and I wasn't able to find anything similar. And this was such an innovative idea, so interesting to me. And the thing that struck me out of all of this was the potential for shifting. I mean, we've all seen microtransactions and how the in the video game world, a lot of this stuff is the biggest games have gone from being the games that you bought right off the bat to games that now everybody plays for free, but effectively loves paying for all these other little addendums and those little things that go on to turn it into this juggernaut of a game. So the final question I have is, what you guys are obviously a digital company. There's so much that you're doing now that touches on so many areas. We haven't even talked about that. So what areas are you looking at going into in the near future? We already seen from you guys, talk of moving into animation, and which is a natural second step, I guess, from comic books. But what about things like video gaming? Because some of us would love a chance to play video games that come in some of the worlds that you've tried to you've created. We can get to play in those worlds in real ways. And then, of course, that kind of ties into things like this, where potentially you have a battle royale in the Comic Republic world, and then you're basically running around and stockpiling on all these tools, and some of these give assets that people who jumped in with Meta Knights now turns them into the big boys when the games start coming out, because it's like a loyalty thing. You guys came in, you can exchange these things that you got from this period to amazing, you can translate that into amazing abilities and resources in that kind of, I'm just curious, my mind is running ahead of me, I guess. So what are you guys looking to do digital wise, multimedia wise? What's happening with Comic Republic? There we go.
I think it's to start from. We're very ambitious, but at the same time, we're very big on quality. To be honest with you, we could have done so many things, but we still don't feel like we're mature enough to start that yet. The stories and the universe are still not yet gotten to the level where we can start to dilute them. But I can tell you that definitely we're even presently in talks with 2 major studios, not in the country. We've signed NDAs, so we can't reveal, who would start to do movie and TV shows from what we're doing. One of them is in the US, the other one is somewhere in Europe, and we're about to sign off on them. I can also tell you that definitely games are in the work. We strongly believe that we should start with mobile gaming first, because for some reason it seems like mobile gaming is where the money is these days. And then, before we move on to console. But the only reason why we're doing that first, again, is from a quality point of view. We're very conscious about the fact that we don't want it to be mediocre because it's coming from Africa, right? And we have said that what we're going to do is that we're going to allow the companies who do these things, which is why we are going to wait till which is why we're trying to close with companies who actually do this as their core, which is things like movies, TV shows, and gaming, for them to handle that part of our business for us, where we give them licensing, which we've already started doing, and so that they can create the movies, TVs, and games. Of course, eventually we're now going to move again into merchandising, but we're only going to do this when we're sure that we can distribute worldwide, and then we can also distribute top quality, simply because, again, we don't want Africa to be linked with mediocrity. But I can promise you that all of this is within the next 3-year pipeline. And so before the end of 3 years, you should have a TV show, a movie, and gaming out there, much more before that if things go according to plan. But max 3 years from now, all those things should be in the market, and we will try our very best to make Africa and Nigeria proud altogether.
Well, that's about all we have time for. Once again, it's been an amazing conversation. I wish we could just go on and on and on. Definitely need to have you guys back on here at some point so we can talk a little bit about what you're doing, and then talk some more about what's coming, especially when you guys have new things coming out. But it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's myself, but I want to thank the guys also from the Naija Nerds, Wale Awelenje and Wale Awelenje, for joining and being part of this. Perhaps you guys might like to maybe let us know where the audience can find you, and people who are watching, those who want to find Comic Republic, and where they can get their hands on comics from you guys, how they can read some of your stuff, and so on. Wale?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Jay. So we are Comic Republic. You can find us on thecomicrepublic.com. All one word, the is THE, comicrepublic.com. You can access this on mobile devices or on desktops, and you can find all our comic books there. On mobile devices, you can also install our app. We have an Android app, Comic Republic, and we can also be found on social media. That would be at Comic Republic NG, NG for Nigeria, at Comic Republic NG on Twitter. We are also Comic Republic Media, all one word, on Instagram, Comic Republic on Facebook. And you can see a few of our little trailers and other videos on our YouTube channel, Comic Republic TV.
Awesome. Well, once again, thanks for joining us, Jide. It's been a great pleasure, great respect for all you guys have been able to accomplish. Thank you so much. It's an honor. Wale is one of us, so we'll see you again soon. Dakpo and my guy here, honestly, it's a real pleasure. And guys, you can find us. We're the Naija Nerds. You can find us at the THE Naija Nerds. Anywhere you have social media on Instagram, on Facebook, and on Twitter. And you can find us at our website, naijanerds.com. That's all from us. Peace out.